So it is September 2020. The RTX 3080 has just been released. The PlayStation 5 has gone on pre-order, and in like a month we're going to get new CPUs and GPUs from AMD. So what are we going to do? We're going to go hard into a 20-year-old game. And I mean hard. Before we get into this video, I need to warn you that it is really, really long. Like 2.5 hours between part 1 and part 2. Check the chapter markers below for the things that might interest you, and feel free to skip the stuff that doesn't. So if you are a gamer of a certain age, Diablo and Diablo 2 were likely a formative experience in your gaming career. Even if you weren't kind of in the appropriate age bracket to enjoy those games as they came out, there's no denying the influence that they've had on the industry. Diablo was the first real action RPG. Up until that point, we were kind of stuck with the Western-style RPGs with a lot of micromanagement, and often you were even worrying about eating and drinking and sleeping and stuff like that. Very precise inventory management, a broad set of skills and abilities that were oriented towards progressing the RPG elements, not as much the combat. Or you had Japanese-style RPGs, which were often like the overworld map and very simplistic tactical combat. Diablo took a different approach. They said that all the skilling is great. I want to be able to build a character that's customized to my liking, but everything that we're going to do is going to be in service of whacking things with a stick. So all of the skills in the skill tree are designed to make you a more efficient killer. There's not like a broad branching narrative or optional. There are quote optional quests, but there's only 6 quests per act, so you're doing them all. It's not like you're skipping things if you're playing the story, and there's not a lot of kind of intrigue or divergence in that story. It's you get from point A to point B while leveling your character and smacking things with swords. Diablo also kind of built the loot-driven game genre in that when you started the game, you took your wood club and you smacked a skeleton with it, and then he dropped a sword, and then you smacked a zombie with that, and then he dropped an axe, and then you smacked a ghost with that. You would iterate your weapon and armor 30-40 times over the course of the story, and as incrementally better items dropped, you would switch to them almost immediately. It's very much like the Borderlands and Destiny version of loot. And it's hard to remember a game before Diablo that had that kind of incremental, frequent gear progression. Now, Diablo had a decent single-player experience. The story, again, was not dynamic. It was not branching. It wasn't an in-depth role-playing experience, but it was decent, and it had decent cinematics. And if you want to play Diablo for that single-player story or to kind of, recall the joy that you had playing through the game the first time, there are some single-player mods and conversions that I would recommend. There's Pluggy, which is really cool, and then Path of Diablo. And both of those make subtle changes to the story. They make changes to the gear. They make changes to the skills and enemies that you're going to encounter, and a lot of quality of life adjustments. So if you wanted to get back and just play some Diablo and have a good time with the game as you may recall it in the nostalgia brain, then check those out. That's great. What I'm really focusing on here is the meta that developed in the online Battle.net ladder system. On a ladder reset, everybody starts at 0, so there's always this mad dash to level your character, to get all the best gear, to get to the point where you're, fighting Ubers and acquiring torches. And that is kind of where we're going to focus, because on that ladder reset, that mad dash, that is why some of the, we'll call it exploits that we're going to talk about today, exist in the first place. And there's really 2 main exploits that people take advantage of on ladder resets. And the first is duping. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on duping because, frankly, I don't know how to do it. Immediately after finding a dupe exploit, Blizzard will patch that out. Like, they take care of that immediately. So if you go Google or check out YouTube videos on ways to dupe, single player stuff, sure, Open Battle.net maybe, But if it's supposed to work on ladder real BattleNet, I guarantee that it doesn't anymore. The second exploit, we'll call it, is botting. And botting is just setting up a tool to play the game on your behalf. But it's kind of hard to deny that at the end of the day, there's a symbiosis between the ladder reset and all the things that happen to level your character, and what the service that the bots are providing. Because if you were part of that meta, if you were part of that mad rush to level your characters and get all the great gear, the way you do that is rushing, which is usually finding a friend that will, that has gone through the difficulties and will drag you with him through all of the major story beats, so you can start doing bail runs. And then once you're to that point, you're jumping into bailbot runs. What you're looking at right now is a Windows 10 virtual machine set up in VMware. I would recommend, if you want to go virtual, go VMware. I had problems with VirtualBox. Even after installing the VirtualBox, additional tools, the 3D acceleration, or the graphics acceleration, this isn't 3D, just didn't work right. And I had a lot of trouble getting the Diablo client to run correctly. It would crash frequently, and it would bring down VirtualBox completely. I'd had to restart VirtualBox altogether to get that to work right. So it never just worked quite correctly under VirtualBox. So if you're going to virtualize, VMware Player is free. Go that route. If you already have VMware Workstation, even better. Windows 10 is installed and ready to go, and it's all up to date. Diablo 2 and Diablo 2 Loaded Destruction is installed. It's all at the latest version. 1.14D is the latest version that's available. That's maybe a year and a half old, 2 years old, something like that. And now, again, I'll leave links to the upgrade. If you're going to do this, please use a legitimate Diablo 2 key. We're going to run like 8 or 9 bots. So, we're going to fill this thing up. You're only going to need one key for it. Like if you played on, if you tried to run these bots on BattleNet, you'd need a unique key for every bot that you're running, and even key reuse. If you're going to aggressively run bots, you'd even want multiple keys to rotate through. So we're not going to have to deal with that, but at least get one legitimate Diablo 2 key. The only way to encourage Blizzard to make more games like Diablo 2 is to buy games like Diablo 2. So it's $13, man. Go get yourself a legit set of keys. So VMware setup. This virtual machine, let me pull it up just to make sure I get it right. This virtual machine is 2 hyper-threaded cores, so 4 cores total, 8 gigabytes of RAM, the default 60 gig hard drive, and it's the hard drive is set to auto expand, so you're only going to use about 30 gig total. And here's the important part: it's using bridged networking and a dedicated IP address, and dedicated on your network, not dedicated on the internet. A lot of the configuration files will not work with 127.0.0.1. They will not work with localhost. They need an actual IP address in the configurations. If you wanted to give your friends access to your server, then you'd have to use something like Dying DNS or some other dynamic DNS provider or something like that. So you don't need an actual public static IP. Just make sure you have a static IP on your network. This is my throwaway VM, so I'm not actually going to bother activating it. I installed Chrome, obviously. I installed 7-zip. I installed Notepad++. You're going to need some kind of advanced, or you're going to want some kind of advanced text editor for the configuration files and that kind of stuff. And then I installed a tool called AstroGrep. And this is really only needed if you really want to start hacking around with the bots. If you're editing the bot, it helps find where certain stuff is in the various files. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is set up the closed BattleNet server, and the product is PvPGN and D2GS. Those are two separate things. PvPGN is separated into a few different components. PvPGN itself mimics kind of the BattleNet front end stuff. So like the chat runs through it, the initial connection runs through it, and like all the orchestration of everything the BattleNet does is through this PvPGN. D2CS, that's the Diablo 2 character server, so that stores all of your characters. And there's this D2DBS, which holds various game state items. These 3 boxes are part of PvPGN. And they're part of the PvPGN download that I'll link to below. And then there's a 4th box, D2GS, which is the game server. That's the thing that actually processes the logic for a Diablo game while you're playing. These three, the three PVPGN, those portions can run on Linux if you preferred, but D2GS is a Windows executable that apparently does not play well with emulation. So you're going to need a Windows box in the mix for something, and all these things are pretty lightweight. In fact, D2GS is probably the most heavyweight of the private server items. So you might as well just put it all in the same Windows box. Most of these things are pretty lightweight. So those are the three boxes: three PVPGN items, and then this one D2GS item. Those are two separate downloads. There's this PVPGN Magic Builder Master. Again, I'll link to all this below. What that would do is, theoretically, it could download the PVPGN, D2CS, D2DBS sources and rebuild the things from scratch, as well as downloading all the required files for D2GS. But we don't have development tools installed. We don't need a completely fresh, unique build. So this PVPGN Master 199 blah 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 Pro, that is the precompiled binaries for PVPGN, D2CS, and D2DBS. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this PVPGN Master for these three items, and then this Magic Builder Master to download and set up D2GS. So both these files we're going to copy. I'm going to put them in a new folder in my C drive called Diablo 2 server. And to set up PVPGN Master, we're going to unzip the file. And then we can delete the zip. And we'll unzip the Magic Builder. And we can delete that zip. So this folder is going to hold these three boxes. Magic Builder is going to have our D2GS in it. And these instructions are great, but they are a little incomplete. I want to say there was an additional IP address down here in the configuration files that we had to modify. So we'll go through that here in a minute. So they want us to run Master Builder first. So we're going to, there's this build D2GS. That is going to build that fourth box, that D2GS box. That's going to have to download a bunch of stuff. I think it modifies some registry entries. So we're going to run that as an administrator. And here's going to ask what version. So the latest version of Diablo is 1.14D. You'll commonly find other public servers playing 113C. And I don't know why they're kind of stuck on C versus moving up to D. But what you don't see in D2GS is a 114D. You don't see a version that matches your Diablo version. 114D, from a client perspective, from a Diablo client perspective, changed the organization of some of the client files. So instead of a bunch of MPQs, they built that all into the executables themselves, that kind of thing. But from the server side, they're identical. The same protocols, the same, they work exactly the same. So we're going to set our server up to run 113D. It's going to allow 114D clients. So your client can be set up as the latest version. The server can be using 113D, and they'll talk just fine. That was a big area of confusion the first time I set all this up, because there's old version hack things. Like when Blizzard first released 114D, there was all this crazy stuff about copying your 113D MPQs into your 114 folder and all this crazy version hack stuff to get the 113 bots running on 114. We're running a private server with 113D that's set up to work with 114 clients, so we don't have to worry about any of that. So ignore any kind of version hack, version fix crap that you read on the internet. We're going to set it up as 113D, and it's just going to work. I think that is a pathing problem. We're going to run a command prompt as administrator. And we're going to go into our PVPN Magic Builder folder. And we are going to run build D2GS. There we go. I'm going to use Diablo as the passwords for everything. So if you see a password box, I'm going to put Diablo in it. Again, this is a throwaway server, so I'm not too worried about security. You should probably pick something better, though. Here's going to ask you if you want to download the essential MPQ files. What this is doing is that's a lot of the game data, a lot of the the algorithms, basically all of the core features of the game are located in files called MPQ files, or at least they were up to 114D. And those MPQ files, since they really determine how the game operates, they have to match between the server and the client. And that's why if you play on public servers that are using 113C, if they're modifying the game, they're going to give you MPQ files that you have to install into your client, because those have to match. You can't have different item attributes on the server than you do on the client. You can't have different drop rates on the server than you do on the client. So those files always have to match. So what this is asking is, hey, you're installing 113D. You want me to go grab these files for you? Now you could, if you did the right installation, you could copy the MPQ files, from a local folder, but you need to make sure they're, the 113 files and that you have them in the right space and all that kind of stuff. Or you can just spend a gigabyte of your bandwidth and go get them yourself, which is what we're going to do. So I answered why it's going to download all these MPQs. Okay, so downloads are finished. Everything is ready to go for us. Even tells you right here, complete setup, edit the registry, run and install that. So now we're done with that command prompt window. And the next setup item is to edit the configuration files. So d2csconf is the first one. And again, d2cs, d2dbs, realm, those are all part of pvpgn, and these last two, d2gsreg and d2server, are part of d2gs. So we're going to start with pvpgn master. And as you can see here, it tells you it's in var. In Windows it's not, and it's in conf. So we're going to go to conf. We're going to open up d2cs, edit with notepad. And so this realm name is kind of the back-end realm designation. You can call it whatever you want in the client itself, but regardless, we're going to essentially lock our clients onto our private server, so there's no chance of you accidentally running your bot against real BattleNet and getting your CD key banned or anything like that. So you can just leave that as it is. Now, server addresses, and they tell you right here, don't use localhost, don't use 127.0.0.1. This is where you're going to put in your local network static IP address. Game server list, this is going to be another one. You can run multiple versions of D2GS, but we're not doing that. bnet address, same thing here. And I think that might be it for this file, but again, not a complete listing over here, so we're going to go through and make sure there's no other IP addresses. That looks good. Now it also wants you to set a D2GS password. Again, I'm using Diablo for all my passwords. And that should be good for that file. We'll move on to D2DBS. And here we go with some IPs. And once again, so this one only told you to change game server. They did not tell you to change this server editors. So that is kind of missing from that configuration. So go over the files and make sure you got all the IPs. So don't just rely on the documentation. But they don't have anything else for us to change, so I'm going to give it a quick once over. Looks good, and save. Next, we're looking at realm conf. And then here, in that previous file, we specified D2CS as our backend realm name, so that'll work. We do need to update the IP address. and that should be good for the for Realm Conf. And this is what shows up in the client itself. So if you wanted to name that something, that's what would show up in the client. It doesn't really matter. It's just display text. But you know, if you wanted to call it something cool, that's where you do it. And there's nothing else in that file, so we're good there. Next is d2gs-reg. And these last two are part of d2gs, so we're going to have to come out and go into our d2gs folder now. So edit that guy, and d2csip, d2bsip. There's a secret in here. Misspelled. I'm going to use Diablo like all of my passwords. And again, once over just to make sure there's no other IPs. Messages of the day, you'll see there's various configuration files for what you see when chat initiates, for what you see when games initiate, all that stuff. So, you know, you can find these various configurations in these files. I'm not going to mess with them with any of them here, but feel free to experiment. But I would get a known good configuration before you start hacking around with stuff. And then finally, d2server.ini. And this one is the Warden setting. Warden is the automated processes that Blizzard has developed to detect cheaters, to detect bots, that kind of thing. You know, we don't want this because we're going to run bots. We wouldn't run it anyway because it's kind of crappy. And they tell you right here, it's deprecated, don't use it. So we're going to disable it. Now all of our files should be set up. And then they have some examples. So now they want you to run the service installer. D2GS runs as a service. All the PvPGN stuff does not. So we're going to run that installer as administrator. So what that did, that installed that registry file that we edited, as well as installing the actual service, and now it tells you to go in and set up the service to run as in compatibility mode. So we're going to do that. Oops, we don't need to do it there, we need to do it here. And you're going to see this for most of the executables for this private server. They're going to be running compatibility mode of some flavor. Windows XP Service Pack 3. And okay. There we go. Optionally, you can install the others, the PvPGN executables as services as well. I usually don't, but feel free. Don't need to worry about multiple realms. Drop rates. Again, they're talking about changing drop rates. Got to be done in the MPQs. Talk about logs. So I think we're ready to start this puppy up. Now I do find that when you install that service, install the G2GS service, it tried to start it automatically and run this executable. That wasn't set up correctly. Restarting the service should be all it takes. But in my last installation, I sat around for probably a half an hour restarting crap, editing files, trying to figure out what the hell is going wrong, because no matter what, PvPGN wouldn't connect to my realm. So from here, I'm just going to go ahead and give it a good old-fashioned reboot to make sure everything is level set. That's what fixed it last time. All of the service restarting and executable restarting and PvPGN restarting didn't do it, but a full system restart, when everything came back up, it came back up right. So, all right, so we're back in. Now the next thing that I do, again, feel free to, you don't need to follow this setup part necessarily. in our Diablo 2 server PvPGN folders, D2CS, D2DBS, and PvPGN, those all must be running for the server to work. If any one of those components isn't running, then you're going to get an error somewhere in your connection. So what I usually do is create a batch file that will start all of this stuff for me. And first I change the directory to that. I start that. There. So what this is going to do is it's going to start all three of the PvPGN executables. You don't have to do that. You can start them all manually. That's not a problem. But if you're not going to install them as a service, I find this is the easiest route to go. The other thing that I do is that the service is supposed to keep D2GS running at all times, but I've had instances where the service seemed to kind of bork up for some reason, and D2GS was not running correctly. So I give it a kickstart here just to make sure there is at least one instance of D2GS running. So now, the start server should start up all four of these executables. Three of them, one should already be running. But you stopped recording, didn't you? Okay, so now we're in the client. You can see the gateway's big plan server. I'm going to hit Battle.net. I don't have any account yet, so I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call this Big Plans Test. Password I'm going to use the same that I use for everything. Okay. Don't register. Continue. Pick a random character. Create a sample game. And we are now in and playing on our custom server. Now that you're in on your custom server, this may be as far as you want to go. If you just wanted to play some Diablo 2, ladder style, this is it. This has everything that's available to you on the Diablo 2 ladder games. It's here. You can kind of go to town and play around, invite your friends in, and have a good old time. So this may be where your desire to continue watching this video ends. But if running around the Blood Moor and whacking things with an axe doesn't appeal to you, and you want to get straight to the end game, you want to get all the best gear in the game, and not have to worry about or not have to deal with all this low level walking around beating stuff with an axe, then let's start talking bots. If we're going to talk about bots, we first have to talk about the game loop And this is representative. This may not be the exact things that Diablo is doing, but it's a good representation, and most video games have a loop similar to this. In this world update section, it's doing things like generating the map, updating NPC locations, maintaining chest statuses and quest statuses, that kind of thing. In character updates, it's updating enemies, health and mana, and calculating their AI and updating your own health and stuff like that. In IO updates, it's drawing your screen, it's gathering input from the keyboard and mouse, it's playing sounds. And in BattleNet updates, it's communicating your client updates to BattleNet and getting the server updates back and integrating them back into the game world. So it's constantly flipping through this game loop. And what a bot does is inject itself into certain parts of this loop. Now, an auto IT bot like MMBot sits at this input-output level. It basically reads the screen multiple times per second and then mimics keyboard and mouse input based on decisions that it made based on the screen. You're kind of stuck with only this one single view, only what you can see on the screen, and you're limited by what you can input as fast as it can accept it through keyboard and mouse input. And MMBot, I ran MMBot for a long time back in the day because MMBot, since it does operate at this I/O level, it doesn't have to inject itself as deeply into the game itself, and it's harder to detect. So it's as long as you're kind of acting like a human, like as long as your bot isn't being overly aggressive and doing obvious body things, then for the most part, these auto IT bots were relatively undetectable. And this is kind of how MMBot or another auto IT bot sees the world. Now, this is mocked up. This isn't an actual screenshot. But what it does is it replaces some of the graphical elements with these boxes, so it can more easily identify like basic enemies in this blue color or bosses in this purple color. It can identify your mana and your health based on the size of these bars down here. So you would actually see this on your screen as the bot was running. You would have all these various boxes and stuff drawn on the screen as the bot ran. So an injection-based bot like D2BS inserts itself into all areas of the game loop. So it can do cool things like discover the entire map all at once. It can identify characters even if you can't see them on your screen. It knows what characters are in the map. Not all of them, because some of them don't spawn until you are kind of approaching them. But it definitely knows what's around you far better than the 800 by 600 window that you can see in Diablo. It can do things like inserting packets directly into the BattleNet stream. So things like faster cast rate, block rate, attack rate, those are all things that are controlled on the client side. So it looks at your gear and says, I need this many frames to attack. D2BS can override that and say, even though you're only supposed to attack every 16 frames, I'm going to send an attack packet every 8 frames. And fool BattleNet into thinking that you're attacking far more often, and then thus impact the world as if you were attacking far faster than you're capable of doing it. So as such, D2BS is a lot easier to discover. It's a lot easier to see these kind of deeper injection behaviors that a bot like D2BS exhibits. But since we're not playing on BattleNet, we don't have Warden set up, we want to have the most efficient bot possible, we're going with a D2BS-based bot. From what I can tell, most of the auto IT-based bots are in various states of disrepair. That Colbot in D2BS are kind of the gold standard for bots nowadays. The injection bot we're going to use is D2BS. And back in the day, there were two main injection bots, D2BS and D2NT. And D2BS and D2NT, those are kind of the core injection libraries. They are the main libraries that pull data from and inject data into the Diablo 2 client and even like the packet sniffing, all that stuff. That's all part of D2BS, D2NT. Then there are scripts that run on top of those base injection libraries. And the one we're going to go with is Colbot, which seems to be the most popular today. So we're going to be running D2BS, and we're going to be running Colbot. And even on top of Colbot, there are patches and iterations on it. So this D2 Cobot Master is base Cobot. It's a Swiss Army knife of a bot. If you wanted to run bail bots, it'll do that. If you wanted to run, area clearing bots, it'll do that. If you wanted to run any character class for pretty much any single purpose, that bot will do it. But it's not a leveling bot. It will run your character as they are configured. It's not going to level your character or auto-equip or distribute attribute points, anything like that. What we have here is Cobot Sonic. And there are videos on this. Sonic is an amazing bot. Sonic will automatically create your character for you. So it'll create a sorceress for you. It will automatically level that sorceress all the way up to 99. So it'll distribute skills, it'll distribute points, it'll automatically equip gear. As it finds better gear, it uses math to determine that it's better. It'll put various equipment on your character. It'll build rune words for a lot of gear. So it'll give your merc an insight. It'll use armor like smoke and treachery. It's a very intelligent leveling bot, and it's awesome. And then the third bot that we're going to utilize is Ponic, and that's my bot. That is a heavy modification on Sonic to basically do the things that Sonic does for a walking Hammerdin. The reason Sonic focuses on the sorceress is because all bots work better with teleport, and sorceress is the only class that gets teleport out of the box. Like by level 12, 18, whatever it is, the sorceress will get teleport, and the bot has a much easier time pathing around. Walking around a level is complex. Teleporting sorceress bot is going to have a far easier time navigating all these levels than my walking Hammerdin bot. However, the Hammerdin is kind of the botting class. There's not many things that are immune to magic, the damage type that hammers use. So when it comes to DPS and ability to clear higher level enemies quickly, Hammerdin is it. When it's larger crowds of weaker enemies, then a Blizzard Sork, which again, that's what Sonic builds, is going to be the go-to. So what we're going to do is we're going to run one Ponic Hammerdin bot and 7 Sonic bots. That's where we're going to start. Because those Sonic bots, they're going to level very quickly. Within 12 hours or so, they'll be at like level 65. Within a couple of days, they'll be at 85 plus. The Ponic bot is probably going to take 3 days or so to get to level 80. He is smart enough that once you hit 85, he'll start doing bail runs. He'll walk through the Worldstone Keep, and he'll kill Bale just walking around. He's going to fail a lot because there's enemies to stop you. There's pathing issues. He's going to mess up, but he will get to he'll do bail runs. So what we're going to do is we're going to start that Hammerdin doing his thing, leveling to 85 or so, and getting to the point where he can do bail. All the while, our 7 Sonic bots, or 7 sorceresses, are going to be doing all the magic find jazz. They're going to be finding a bunch of mid runes, probably a high rune or 2 in the next few days, and they're going to build the Enigma for the Ponic, for the Paladin, for the Hammerdin. And you can team them up if you want, because there are magic immunes in bail runs, and it does take them a little while to get through the I forget what they're called, the big skeleton-looking guys that can raise skeletons, and they're a pain in the butt. That really slows him down. If you pair him with a sorceress and have the sorceress follow him around and take care of all that one magic immune group, they plow through bail runs in no time. You can also start loading up those paladins with various charms, like a Geed's Fortune, with magic find charms. If he's struggling, you can give him life charms or something like that. But load him up and don't worry about his inventory space as much. And then the Sonic bot will come by and scoop everything up. So there's a number of things you can do once you have multiple classes of high-level bots, and we'll get into that. But for now, we're going to set up Sonic to run 7 sorceresses. That's going to be our goal. We're going to grab Sonic Master, and again, links will be below. We're going to put that out in our same D2 server folder. And I don't need that anymore. And we're going to extract that. And there are a few items that you have to do to get Sonic working. First of all, the executable itself needs to run in compatibility mode for Windows 7 has been working in the past. I'm going to leave it as that. And it does have to run as administrator. Part of being an injection bot is that it has to be able to do the injection, which requires administrative level, requires administrator. So apply that, okay. Step 1 done. The next thing we're going to do is going to d2bs colbot libs sonic settings, and you're going to see the settings.json. So we're going to edit that with Notepad. And this is where you set up the accounts that you're going to use. Leave all alone. You don't want to touch it. What you want to do is create a set of this data for each account that you're going to run. And we're going to run 7 sorceresses. So we're going to have 7 iterations of this in addition to the all. So here we're going to call it Sonic 1. You give it the account name here. And I'm going to call it SorkBot1. Password's going to be the same I use for everything. The character name is going to match SorkBot1. And the reason I'm not using the numeric one is that on the character name, you can't have that. You can't have SorkBot number 1. The realm is going to be D2CS. That's our custom realm. Again, it doesn't matter though. You're locked into this realm, so no matter what you pick, it's gonna go to your private server. It's gonna be a ladder character. It's gonna be expansion character. Not gonna be hardcore. This respec stuff. So the default sorceress starts off with Fire Blast. Sorry, with the fire spell. And in the early game, Fireball is kind of the spell to go with. So Sonic is going to build a fire-based sorceress until this respec level, 24. So this respec build, this start, is a fire-based Sork build. Then at level 24, it's going to reset using, what's-her-face? The Act 1 reset. And then respec as a Blizzard bot. So it's going to reset all the stats, it's going to reset all the attributes, it's all the skills, and it's going to redo everything to become a Blizzard bot. So that's what that stuff is. So Sonic 1, oops, I'll call it 1, SorkBot 1, Diablo SorkBot 1, D2CS. Okay, that all looks good. Then we're going to do this 6 more times. And then keep in mind, I've been copying that first iteration over and over. This last one, you don't want that comma there because there is no entry after it. So get that right. Okay, so with that configuration file done, we can open up the bot. And again, all this has to always run as an administrator. Since you set it up, in the compatibility mode, that it should automatically do that. All right, now we're open, and you see this first Sonic profile. They tell you not to touch that first profile, so we're not going to. We are going to add a profile. And this is the D2BS setup screen. Sonic is special in that it doesn't use most of this data. The important part's going to be the profile name. I don't believe it reads anything else, but we're going to fill it in just to be safe. So if you look at this drop-down in D2BS, it's only going to give you the 4 built-in realms. You can type in D2CS here, and it's going to take it. It's going to say that's fine. But every time you open this window, it's going to default that back to East. So feel free to change this, and feel free to change it every time if you like. But here we're going to kind of rely on the gateway installer locking us into a private server, because if you modify this, it's going to flip it back. If you forget, it's going to say East, but that's not going to matter because it's going to lock you into your private server anyway. So optional, don't need to change this, don't need to make it, you can leave it as East, West, or Europe, any of them. It's going to lock them all into your private server. We want it to be BattleNet, paths are fine. You always have to set your game path, and it finds it just fine, so it's not a problem. You have to set your entry script to Sonic. The key list is for multiple keys. Since we're running the one key on all of our bots, we don't have to worry about that, so leave it. And we're not going to do any scheduling. I do want it to be visible. If you check it as, if you make it invisible, it'll run. It looks like it's minimized, but I think it might be something special because you have to click on this show button to see it. So we're going to leave it as visible. I'm going to apply all that, and we're going to test this first one out to make sure it works as we think. And he's using a invalid account. Okay, so stop. So there's a configuration issue in the account setup, sortbot1. Called it Sonic 1. That's the problem. All right, so our profiles didn't match. I can fix that easily. There. Now it should find it in the file and do the right thing. So try that again. Here is the other issue. D2BS, and at least the Sonic iteration of D2BS, is only expecting 4 servers. It doesn't know how to click on server number 5. So we've got a way around that. I'm going to stop the bot. And I will leave a link to the download below, but there is a fix. If you look in Sonic OOG fix, there's an OOG JavaScript file. We're going to copy that. And we're going to go to Diablo 2 server. We're going to go to Sonic. And we're going to replace this one here. So the one in D2BS Colbot libs, we're going to back it up and put our custom OOGS or OG.js file in there. And basically this customized version ignores the realm list altogether. It doesn't try to figure out the right realm because, again, we're locked in, so it doesn't matter. So now with that new OOG, hopefully it'll go right past the realm configuration. You can see it creating the account. And for some reason, when it creates the account, it kind of fails the first time, and then it goes through the creation part again. I think it's just to get it back, because when you first create an account, it automatically shoves you into the character creation screen. And I think it doesn't like that. So it goes back and goes through the process again. But as you can see, it created our sortbot1 character. It's creating a new custom game for it now. And off she goes. And again, this character will go through all the quests. It'll level the character. It will equip items. It'll do everything you need to get this to a level 99 sorceress. So now that we know that this profile works okay, we're going to set up 6 other ones. And they give you a handy clone version, or a clone button here. So we're going to clone this one. Change our 2 items. And we're going to double check to make sure that's all I needed for the clone. And D2BS adds this command line thing up top. If you just hit escape, that'll go away if you don't want to look at that. And this one seems to be doing the right thing as well. We'll let it get into a game just to make sure. And that one's going to get a failed to join game. That happens occasionally. That happens in real Diablo as well. Sometimes you'll create a game and it just, the game doesn't get created properly and it just fails. So not a big deal. It'll create a new one here. There's wait times built into everything because again, this thing's trying to mimic a human. So you can see here that it's delaying for 30 seconds before it creates its new game. All right, that one's running okay as well. So we're going to set up the other remaining 5. So we're going to have 7 total. So we're going to clone. All right, so now we have all 7 of them. We're going to tell the remaining ones to kick off. And there we have our 7 bots all going to town, rocking and rolling. Here's where you may want to reconsider making them visible. You can only watch really one at a time, so we'll minimize them for now. All right, so now we're going to set up the Paladin bot, and that's going to be this Cobot Ponic. So I'm going to copy that to the same Diablo 2 server folder. And the setup is almost identical to Sonic. So we're going to come in here, we're going to set the executable to run as Windows 7 administrator. We're going to go into DTBS Cobot libs Ponic settings, and we're going to edit that JSON file. And similar to the last one, about 1, and then we're only going to run one of those for now, but I am going to get the other one ready to go. All right, and this Ponic bot is a little different. So first of all, you're going to see the respec level 99 doesn't respec. Basically, I think you get hammers at level 18. Until the bot gets hammers, it's just going to whack stuff with with a sword. So there is no respec. You're going to have all 3 of your potential free respecs available at the end of the bot. Some of the other things that this bot changed, just kind of going through the list. So of course it changed the bot to be Paladin based and not Sorceress based. So all the account creation and character creation stuff is all Paladin centric. The auto level stuff has all been modified. So the skills obviously are Paladin based. It'll pick gear that's more Paladin specific. There are special holds for gear in the late game. So for instance, if you give this guy an Enigma, he's not going to drop it. So there are a number of kind of hard-coded pieces of gear in the Ponic bot, so that if it sees one of those, it'll take it and it's not going to replace it, or it's not going to replace it, except for with another specialized named piece of gear. So in this instance, it's going to keep a Wizard Spike, it's going to keep an Enigma, it's going to keep a Kira's Guardian, it's going to keep a Mara's Kaleidoscope, a Herald of Zakarum, that kind of stuff is all built into the bot for Ponic. A bunch of quest changes. Obviously the Sonic bot is built assuming that you're going to have teleport available, as of level 18. So most of the late game stuff is very teleport heavy. So a lot of the quests and movement stuff had to be adjusted for a walking Hammerdin. In particular, fighting the Ancients. The Sonic bot won't even fight Hell Ancients. It doesn't even. In fact, I don't think it goes to Act 5 at all. I think it stops at Diablo. Ponic will do that. Once it gets high enough level, it'll go kill the Ancients, it'll go kill Baal. So since this bot is going to start doing Baal runs at the end, it has a special low gold mode. Since Baal runs may not have a high level of success for a walking Paladin, you're going to spend a lot of cash on potions and on rezzing your merc. So if it detects that you don't have enough gold, it'll run like chests and mausoleum, like low-level easy stuff, and just pick up and sell all the crap. It's got a built-in feature to automatically just farm gold until it's got enough to feel comfortable doing Baal runs again. Those are kind of the high points. So enough talking. Let's get him going and see what he's going to do. All right, we're going to start him up. And just like with Sonic, we're going to leave that initial profile alone. And fill in the rest. And Hammerdins 1. Oops. And his startup script is correct. We'll make him visible. Oops, got to pick the game path. Looked like it had it in there, but okay. And I just want to double check that I'm using the correct values in there. So Coldbot, lids, Ponic, settings, Hammerdins 1, Ponic 1. Okay. Ponic 1. Hammerdins 1, Hammerdins 1. All right. So now he'll hopefully start up and do the same thing that Sonic does. All right, there he goes. So just like Sonic, he'll work through all the quests, equip all the gear, and we can ignore him for now. And as you can see, we now have 8 bots running, 7 Sonics, 1 Ponic. And they are going to run completely independently. So now, all of our bots are running. They're doing their own thing. There's not much for us to do now. Obviously, you can watch them. It's entrancing to kind of watch the gameplay itself. But for the next stop of this video, we're going to let these guys go for about 12 hours. So these bots, we didn't set up any muling or anything like that. And at lower levels, there's no gear that you'd want to mule anyway. They're just going to replace the stuff they're carrying with new stuff. They are going to, like I said, they'll build their own rune words and stuff like that. So we're going to let these guys run, and we'll check on them later tonight. Okay, so here we are, about 12 hours in. I haven't really touched these bots except for to make sure that they're still running, that nothing's crashed or anything like that. And as you can see, the Sonic bots are leveling much quicker than the Ponic bot. They're all, looks like the lowest is mid 60s, low to 60s, and the highest is pushing 70, whereas Ponic, our Hammer bot, is only about level 36. And they were neck and neck up until level 18 or so, when the sorceress got teleport, and then they just fly after that. After they get teleport, then they just rocket up. So this is going to continue like this. By tomorrow morning, in another 12 hours or so, these guys are going to be probably right around 80. Once you kind of get to 70, they slow down a bit once they get into the higher levels of hell. In another day or so, these guys, well, another 12 hours or so, these guys will probably be ready to move over to Colbot. It'll probably take them a day or so after that to find enough runes, maybe 2 days after that, to find enough runes to build an Enigma. Then we'll hand that Enigma to this guy, drop one of these bots, spin up our next Hammer bot, and go from there. And we're back. It's been another 12 hours or so. Most of our Sonic bots have hit level 80 at least. One's still straggling behind a little bit, and our Ponic is at 64, so he's not too far behind. He's doing better than I recall him doing, so not too bad. What we need to do now, though, is that these guys have been picking. You can see all the picks in the bottom right, and everything that they pick up and equip is also listed there. So it's kind of a running list of everything they do. They've been picking up some mid runes, like there's a Mal here, a Pull. I think they even picked up a Sur up here somewhere. A Gull. And then some junk. Basically, Mal and above, there's a Sur. I keep and then cube up to build the Enigma. So with these guys picking some pretty good runes up right now, I'm going to go ahead and mule them off. And so something about muling, you can set up auto mule on any of the bots, and they'll keep whatever is in your pickets and then drop it off on the mule. Then they don't respect like max counts. So if you tell everybody to pick up like 1 ruby, then once they mule that off, then they don't have it anymore. So they'll just constantly pick up the same stuff over and over again and mule it off. Now you can tell it not to mule certain items, but it gets to be a big complicated thing. Really all we're interested in are runes and maybe some Paladin Hammerdin items. So we're not going to set up muling, at least not yet. For now, we're just going to do it ourselves. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop all these bots. And the problem with running Diablo just straight up, just running it through the standard executable, it'll only let you run 1 copy. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into standard Colbot. So not the Sonic or the Ponic, the regular old Colbot with Sonic, or no, where is it? Colbot Master. I haven't set that up yet, so we're going to go grab that. So our D2 bot with Colbot Master. And we can extract that. Oops. Now this is base Colbot, so it doesn't do any kind of leveling or auto-equipping or anything like that. It has bots for specific runs, but it assumes that you've already built your bot to the correct specifications. Oops. And just to make sure, we need to make sure this is running in compatibility mode and as administrator. So this is going to be a familiar looking screen. The cool thing about Colbot is that even if you don't want to run an automated run, they also support map hacks, and that's what we're going to set up right now. We're going to set up 3 map hack accounts. So I'm going to add pack 1. It doesn't matter what you put in as the account because this one's not going to auto log us in. So I'm going to leave it as my Hammerdins 1, or we'll go with Sorkbot since I'm doing 3 of them. Sorkbot 1. And need to specify game path every time. Come on. The entry script is going to be map, d2bot map. And we do want this to be visible. And there we go. And I'm going to clone that twice. All right, so now I have these 3 map hack accounts, or 3 map hack profiles set up in standard ColdBot. I'm going to open one of them just to show you what we're doing here. And we're going to log into our first Sorkbot. And I'm just going to create a standard normal game with an easy to remember name. All right, so now, I should leave that up. So you're going to get, by the way, the plus on the numpad will show or hide the, well, it'll show, it won't hide. It will show the D2BS console. When escape will remove it. But you do get this warning here, bad attack config, don't expect your bot to attack. So this bot won't actually do anything. It's made to be played with a map hack. If we're bringing up the map, we're only in the Bloodmoor right now, but you can see the map looks pretty normal, but then it's got a couple of lines on it, and then it's got a couple of prompts to do things down here. So 0 Bloodmoor, 2 waypoint, 7 disable, 8 disable vectors. All looks kind of weird, so let's walk out of the Bloodmoor, and we'll kind of show you what this thing does. I'm sorry, walk out of the Rogue Encampment. So now we're in the Bloodmoor, and now you see X's pop up. These are standard enemies. Red X's are standard enemies. So I can walk up, and we can, this is normal, so it's not like they're going to put up much of a fight. So we can fight the enemies. That's it'll tell you exactly where everything's at. And then the lines are to interesting items in the map. So 0, Cold Plains, that'll take us to the next area, space, whatever, and that's generally num 0, and pretty much any level is going to take you there. 1 will generally take you to the previous area. So Rogue Encampment is where we came from. Cold Plains is where we go. Den of Evil is a point of interest on this map, so this one's unique. When you get to like the 3, 4s, and 5s, then those are kind of unique. 7 will disable the monster, so I can turn off those X's, and then 8 will turn off the lines. Now, if I do pick Cold Plains or Rogue Encampment, it's going to take me right there. So I'm just going to push 0 on the number pad, and she's just going to figure it out. And there we are. And now if I'm now in the Cold Plains, if I wanted to go to the Cold Plains web waypoint, say I didn't grab it on the first playthrough or something like that, I can press 2, and she'll go retrieve that waypoint. And you can keep doing this, throughout the entire game. Basically, you can walk to each waypoint. So when you're actually playing the game, playing it with this map hack is a pretty good idea, because it does, let you avoid getting places and dealing with kind of normal BS. So we're going to go back to the Rogue Encampment, because we're not here to actually play. We're here to mule. So we're going to park this character right here in the middle of the Rogue Encampment. I'm going to move this window out of the way. And I'm going to start up the other 2. And I don't have a mule account yet, so I'm going to create a new account. For the purposes of this video, I am just going to call it Mule1. Same password as everything. Pick any character, call it whatever you want, and server down. That means I'm going to have to go in again and try it one more time. There. And I'm going to join that same game. And my first mule, Mule 1, I'm going to use for runes and gems that are required for upgrading runes. Once again, we're not running on actual BattleNet, so even though I am logged into Mule 1, the account, with Mule 1, the character here, I can still log into Mule 1, the account over here. Now, I can't log in with this character. If I try to do that, it's going to stick at the game start door that opens. It's never going to launch a game. But I can create a brand new character. Make it my second mule and join that same game. And this one I'm going to use for uniques and items that I want to save for either the Paladins or for my other sorceresses. And then I'm just going to proceed to mule. So what the bot does, and let me open the Picket to show you, there are calculations that it goes through when it decides what to equip. So we're going to go in and look at the picks. Is this where it's at? No. Maybe it's under Sonic. So this is the levels. All right, we're just doing a search for the nips. Expansion. Just there. Okay, so we have this auto equip folder. We're going to open that file location. So in Sonic Master, DTPS, Colbot, Picket, Sonic, Auto Equip, you'll see expansion, Sorc. Where there's a classic Sorc. I don't know if people are going to bother running a bot against classic Diablo 2. So expansion Sorc is the one that's going to be used. Or this is an expansion character. If we look at that, it looks a little different from normal Pickets. So normal Pickets, the first are kind of like base item properties. The first property is kind of base item criteria. The second is kind of extended item criteria, and then there's this third section here that has this tier property in it, and that's not something people usually deal with in normal Pickets. So most of this is kind of self-explanatory. So this is a conditional, so if my character level is greater than 9 and it's an amulet and it's less than magic, then it's going to apply this criteria. And if this criteria matches, it's going to potentially keep the item. So it's less than magic, greater than set for these two items. Item charge skill means it's got some kind of charge skill, or some kind of item has X charges left type of thing on it. And then this tier is kind of where the magic happens. And so this is commented out. So this get stat EX. This refers to this all skill property. So all skills plus X. That's what this item get stat EX 127 is doing. Sorc skills. So get stat EX 83,1. That's Sorc skills. Cold skills is 188.10. So it's going to take all skills plus Sorc skills plus cold skills, multiply that number times 1,000. All right, and that's going to kind of be the first part of the calculation of this tier property. Then it's going to add in fire resist, cold resist, and lightning resist. It doesn't care too much about poison resist. So again, get stat EX39, that's fire resist, 41 is cold resist, 43 is lightning resist. Then it's going to multiply that times 1,000. So the resistances play an equal weight to the skillers, although skills are a much smaller number. So resistances actually play like an outsized role when picking any of these items. And that's why you see so many plus res items on our bots. Next is going to do strength and dexterity. So get stat EX 0 and 2, strength and dexterity. Those are only going to be multiplied by 100. So those are 1/10 as influential when picking an item as either skills or resistance. Max HP and mana. So again, get stat EX7 is HP, EX9 is mana. Oops, and then it's going to multiply the HP and mana stats times 10. So they're going to be again 1/10 the 1/10 the weight of the strength and dexterity, and 1/100th the weight of resistances. And then faster cast rate, oops. And then faster cast rate at the end, which is the lowest, it is 1/1000th the value of skillers or resists. So and you're going to see this a similar calculation for most of the items in this list. So this bot heavily prioritizes resistances over pretty much everything. And that's great because hell, there's significant penalties to resistances in hell, but you're going to, it's not differentiating between fire resist, cold resist, and lightning resist. So if you have something that's giving, 50 fire resist, that's going to get more priority than something that's given 15 all resist or something like that, because that's only going to be 45 of these 3 properties. So you may end up with unbalanced resists if you find a bunch of stuff that is single element resistances. So you gotta watch out for that for a little bit. And then it doesn't really have much. There's some in-game stuff down here, so it's going. This is what it's going to keep for the in-game, and what you see it doing here. So like War Travelers, this is the standard picket for War Travelers, and then it takes this tier, this 1E9. That's an exponential calculation. So this is going to be 9 zeros plus get item stat. A couple of item stats. So what this is doing is it's, this 1E9 is going to make this tier value greater than any of these calculations above here. So that's automatically going to make it a higher tier than any item in the kind of the calculated auto equip. And then it's going to add in a couple of stats, and we'll look up what these stats are. So it will, if it picks up a crappy War Traveler, that's going to have this 1E9 and then low values for these other 2 stats. If it picks up a better War Traveler, then it's going to have the 1E9 and then better values for this stat. So it will exchange a better War Traveler for a crappy War Traveler. And that goes the same with Alder's Advance, with Chance Guards, Mosers, all the Tal stuff, etc. So, if you let this thing run infinitely, if you let it go forever and it finds, everything, period, it will end up with very good War Travelers, with Elder's Advance, with... so these are both boots, so it's going to pick one... so 2E9, so it likes the Alder's Advance more than the War Traveler, so it'll take the Alder's Advance over the War Travelers because it's going to have a higher tier. Then it'll have Chance Guards, it'll take the Blessed Circle, it'll keep a Tal... staff, it's Tal Wand. It'll keep the Tal face mask. It'll keep the Tal, what is it, Guardianship? That's the lacquer plate, right? Yeah. So the armor, the belts. So the full Tal set it'll keep in addition to these other items. So that is kind of how, like, if you wanted to adjust what the in-game looked like for these Sorks, use the same pattern that you see down here. Find the picket for the item that you want to use. Create a tier that is arbitrarily larger than any other tier that would appear elsewhere in the in the auto equip nip, and add it to this file. So that that's the high level of those picks. We'll talk more about picks later. For now, we're just going to continue muling and cleaning up our bots here.